if you go to the little video file over here, open this up, you see this now something called motion trackers, which looks like a separate effect, but it's actually a separate effect group there called motion trackers. And it says tracker 1, and it says track point, and then all these various things, confidence, attach point, and attach point offset. We are about to create a whole pile of keyframes here automatically that'll show up here in the confidence, attach point, and the attach point offset here. Okay, to do that I need to place this track point over the thing that I want to track. And usually it's best for you to have the current time indicator at the beginning of the comp. So that's where it is now. It doesn't have to be because you can track backwards or forwards, but in this case the motion is basically moving forward through time here, so might as well start at the beginning. And I want to zoom in on this officer's face here to get a better ability to place my track point. So to zoom in, I press the period key on my regular keypad, and that zooms in a bit. And now I want to go to see his face, so I hold on the space bar to switch on the hand tool temporarily, and I'm pulling down the entire panel. I'm not pulling down the layer, just the panel. Now if I hover over this thing, you'll see that it turns into a four-pointed thing there, a little black four-pointed thing, or a white one if I hover over a corner like that. It's hard to get. It sort of hovers in, turns white. And then this little cross there, it's called the attach point. What I want to do is I want to position this whole box over the area that I want to search. I want After Effects to look inside only this area when it's looking for the thing that it wants to follow. So I'm going to drag this whole thing by getting to the point where I've got those four arrows. If I go to the edge, I can take a corner and actually change the size of the box. Now I don't want to do that. So I'm going to grab the whole box and move it. Notice that it magnifies now. I want to go to, let's say, to his ear like that. When you're going to track something, you want to get something that has a different color or a different contrast to make it easier for After Effects to follow it. So in this case, his skin tone will be different color than the background, and it should be fairly easy to follow it because there's an edge to his ear, so it'll be obviously different from the background. When he turns his head a little bit in profile, it becomes harder to track, just so you know, and we'll have to deal with that. After Effects is not looking for an ear, it's looking for something that looks different than the surrounding color or contrast, and when he turns his head, it'll be skin tone against skin tone, so it won't work that well. But that's how we start it. And then you have two little boxes here. I can grab a corner of the box and move it around like this. And I'm basically saying this thing inside the box is the thing that I want you to follow. So I can move it to the right a little bit like that. And this little crosshatch in the middle there is the attach point, is the thing to which we're going to apply attach the text. Usually you leave it in the center, and some people have you follow one thing and have the track point go elsewhere because you want to attach something away from the thing you're following. But it's really easy to move it off the attach point if you want to do that, just by changing the anchor point later. So it's no big deal. You can leave it right there in the center. It really is not that important to move it off center because you want it, let's say, to have the thing you're going to attach appear elsewhere. It's not a big deal. You can leave it right in the center like that. This thing on the outside is the area in which you want After Effects to look for this thing inside that box. So you're basically telling it, only look here, don't bother yourself with looking outside of here. And when I know the motion is going to go left to right or right to left, I can take this whole thing by going to one of the lines here, not to the corner, but to the line. I can move the box like that to anticipate the motion, to help After Effects know that we're going to be looking on the left side of the screen here. Does that make sense? So we've got this all set up now. It's not like rocket science here. It's just some little things you can do to try to improve the possibilities of getting a good motion tracker. Now I'm going to zoom out a bit so you can see it better by pressing the comma key, here, like that. Take my hand tool and slide to the right a little bit like that. And now we're going to watch After Effects track this motion. And the way you do that is you go down here to the bottom, and that little triangle there is the Analyze Forward button. So it's going to analyze as you go forward through the video. I could analyze backward if I wanted to. That would go backwards to the video, but right now we're at the beginning anyways. So I click on that, and let's just watch how it does it. Notice the attach point is staying attached. I'm going to stop because it's going off screen. Take my hand tool by pressing the space bar, pull it down so I can see it better like that. And it's doing really well. You can see it's still over his ear. Analyze forward some more. And right there it loses it. Notice how you can watch it stop. That's because his ear went off screen, which is, you expect that we can't follow it. It actually did a really good job in profile there, so that is a little bit of a surprise, but it may be because the contrast of the darker area inside his ear ended up working pretty well for a track point. But now it's going to go off. And it still adds keyframes down here. Notice all the keyframes? So at this point you want to get rid of the keyframes. From that point forward you won't need these keyframes because they're wrong. So just marquee select the keyframes. And in fact the only keyframe we're really interested here is the attach point keyframe, but I'm going to delete all of them by marquee selecting them, pressing delete. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go forward in time and I'm going to take my attach point and drag it up to where his ear is off screen like this. I don't need to worry about these boxes, just the attach point. So I drag it up like that, and that will add a keyframe for the attach point down here. And at that new time. I can go farther forward just to kind of keep the motion going. It's not that critical, but it may sort of help us as we attach something to it and then fade it off screen. And now we have done it. That's a real good motion track there. I mean, I'm really happy with that. Got kind of lucky. All right. So now I need to attach something to the track point, to the attach point. And to do that I need to go back to the comp panel. So I go back to the comp panel here. In fact, I can close down the layer panel if I just click on this X here. We're done with this motion tracking. And now I want to attach something to this attach point down here. I'm going to close this down for the time being because it's kind of taking up a lot of real estate. I'm going to add some text. So I'm going to go to the beginning here where I know the text is going to appear so I can sort of adjust its general position here. So I go get my type tool by clicking away from this layer so it's not selected, then click on the type tool. I'm going to type in something like, right there, my feet. Okay, and I'm going to give it a keyframe because I want to have this change the text as we move forward here. So I'm going to open this up and give it, open this up, go to text, click on the source text there in a little ways. We'll go right about there. So we'll hold the keyframe for that long. And right about there I want to change the text. So I just double click on the text here to get it active. Are killing me. My feet are killing me. And that'll add a new keyframe there. And right now it's off screen, but that's okay. It would be nice to make it a little more visible, so I'm going to add a layer style. I'm going to add a drop shadow. So to add a layer style, just right click on the layer and go to layer styles and add a drop shadow. And by default it adds a drop shadow. Sometimes when you add an effect nothing happens, but when you add a layer style drop shadow it does add a little bit of a drop shadow, which is fine. It just makes it stand out a little bit better there. So now it looks like this. My feet are killing me. It's off screen, but don't worry about it. We'll fix that in a second. Now I want to add a line that goes from there down to his face. And one way to add a line is just to add a rectangle. So I'm going to click away here so that the text isn't selected anymore, because if I use a shape tool when it's selected it actually creates a mask. Don't want to do that. Click away to deselect that. Click on the shape tool and I'm going to make a rectangle. So when I click on the shape tool and I don't have a layer selected, that means that the shape tool colors pop up here. I click on fill. I want it to be white, which it is because I did this before. And I want to have a little stroke on it, so I click on stroke. Right there it says 2 pixels, so it's already got a stroke, and I see that it's black, which is fine. That's what I want. You can have it whatever you want. I'm going to make a little rectangle. I'll put it here where I can see it. Just draw the rectangle like so. Just to make it a line like that. All right. And I've never explained how to work with shapes before, and shapes are a whole different story when you're working in shapes in After Effects. But what's kind of strange or at first disconcerting about working with shapes is that when you add a shape, the layer that you're putting the shape in has its own set of transform properties like rotation and anchor point and scale, things like that. And then the shape itself has its own set of transform properties. So you can have multiple shapes in the same layer, and each shape has its own set of transform properties, and then the entire layer has a set of transform properties. So you have 5 shapes and rotate the layer, then all the shapes rotate around like that. Or you can rotate individual shapes within a layer, which can throw you off a bit. But for the purposes that we're going to do here, I want the anchor point for the layer to be down at the bottom of this shape. So it's a little tricky to do that, but it's not critical, but it makes it easier to maneuver it a little bit. So the anchor point, you can barely see it inside that police officer's uniform there. I'm going to change the color of the swatch here for the shape by clicking on this little swatch down here. And I'll make it a different color, like orange, let's say. Okay, now I can see it better right there. I'm going to zoom in a bit because I want to put it right here at the bottom of this rectangle. So I'm going to zoom in by pressing the period key a couple of times. There we go. And now I get the pan behind tool and drag that to that point there. The pan behind tool is the letter Y, or I can click on the pan behind tool like that. Now I drag it I can approximate it to that point there, but if I hold on the Control or the Command key, it'll snap to that point right there. Okay, so now when I rotate it, if I press R for rotation here, it'll rotate around that point, which makes it much easier to deal with. All right, I want to zoom out of the screen here, Shift /. I want to position this guy here off that word my there, so maybe zoom in a bit, period key. Get the selection tool, drag it over to one side like that, position it over that. Rotate it a bit, pressing R, try that again. Rotating it a bit like so. Press V to get the selection tool again, and go about like that. It seems to be a bit large, so I'm going to go to Scale, go to here, press S for Scale. Break the link. I think we'll scale the Y value. Maybe the X value a bit too, because it's kind of thick. Like that. Go back and move it in just a little bit like that, and put it behind the text. I put the text on top of it by dragging my feet above that shape layer. So now it's behind it like that. Okay. And to make this process complete, because what we're going to do is we're going to attach the whole combination of these two things to the attach point. I want, when you attach something to the attach point, which sounds redundant, but when you attach one layer to the attach point, you're essentially attaching that layer's anchor point to the attach point. And right now, the text and anchor point by default is in the lower left-hand corner of the text. I want it down here at the end of this little knob there, because that'll make it easier to make this thing connect. So I'm going to make sure the text layer is active, get my pan behind tool here. I'm just going to drag it down there to that general area there, just right about there. The snap tool won't work in this particular case, or won't work well, so I'll put it right there. And now we're set. So if I, let's say, go to my feet and press S for scale or rotation, it'll rotate from that point. Okay. All right, now notice how it broke away from the little line there when I moved it. I want to connect these two guys so they're like one unit. And you can connect things as one unit using what's called a pre-comp, which is something I've not really explained very much. But another way to do that is something called using the parent tool, or the parent feature. And I have the parent feature open here right now, just because I worked on it recently. But if you don't see parent here, you just right-click anywhere in this little bar up there. And it says columns, and you can click on parent, or put a checkbox next to parent like that, and the parent will show up there. And I want to parent the shape to the text, as opposed to the text to the shape. If I parent the text to the shape, the text will probably skew because the shape is skewed. I'll just test that. I'll take the parent pick whip, this little guy that looks like a rope, like a lariat. If I just drag that down to the shape layer, I'm going to guess it's going to get twisted. Let's see. Yeah, see how it got twisted like that? Because it's taking on the characteristics of the shape. I don't want to do that. Control or Command Z. Don't do that. So instead I'm going to connect the shape layer to the text by dragging this little lariat to that, like that. And I've connected it such that these guys are one unit, so that if I move feet, let's say I'll go to position for feet, my text, if I move it, they'll move together as one unit, which is what we want to do here. So now we're ready. And all I want to do is take the attach point from the motion tracker and just copy and paste those keyframes to my feet. Pretty straightforward. So go down here, press U for all the keyframes. There are all the keyframes. If I click on the word attach point, or the words attach point, that selects all of those keyframes. Press Control or Command C to copy them. Control or Command C to copy. Now all those keyframes are copied. If I take my current time indicator to the beginning, I want to make sure that I'm at the beginning so that when I put the keyframes up here, they also line up like that. Click on position here just to make that active so we know we're pasting something to. Do Control or Command V, and I paste all those keyframes in there for position. And so now the anchor point here is taking on, the anchor point's not keyframe, but the position is based on the location of the anchor point. So now the position of this combination of these two layers together will then match the position of the attach point.